Welcome to English Storytime. Today we follow Ella as she continues her grand journey across Europe and arrives in Prague, the magical capital of the Czech Republic. Known as the City of 100 Spires, Prague is a fairy tale woven from cobblestone, music and myth. Here, past and present blend seamlessly through Gothic cathedrals, medieval bridges, Baroque palaces, hidden courtyards and vibrant cafes. In this long and immersive story, you'll join Ella from early dawn to deep midnight, as she explores every detail, every quiet street, every wonder. As always, you will learn rich and natural English vocabulary through gentle storytelling that lets you feel and experience the world around her. Ella boards the overnight train from Amsterdam. Her cabin is small but cozy. Through the window, she watches the Netherlands dissolve into misty fields, then dark forests and distant towns blinking softly through the night. The rhythm of the train rocks her gently into sleep. She wakes just before sunrise. Outside the window, the Czech countryside rolls past, farmland, hills and red-roofed villages. A soft fog covers the fields like a woolen blanket. Birds stir. Trees lean toward the tracks as if to listen. The train curves slowly and finally enters Prague's central station. It's early. The sky is painted in hues of violet and rose. Ella steps onto the platform, her boots echoing on the tiles. The air is brisk and fresh. A breeze carries the scent of morning bread, wet stone, and chimney smoke. She breathes in deeply, feeling a quiet excitement in her chest. She walks through the station and steps out into the heart of the city. Her hotel is near Wenceslas Square, in a building with wrought iron balconies and carved stone columns. Her room has a high ceiling, antique lamps, and windows that look out onto the street below. She unpacks slowly, washes her face, and opens the window to let the city in. At 7 a.m., she walks out with a warm scarf and gloves. The square is still sleepy. Trams hum along their tracks. Few people are out. A baker sweeps the sidewalk. A man walks his dog. Pigeons flutter above the statue of Saint Wenceslas. She stops at a corner bakery and buys a colic, sweet pastry filled with poppy seeds and plum jam, and a paper cup of black coffee. She eats while walking toward the old town. The streets grow narrower. The buildings seem to lean toward one another, whispering. Gas lamps line the way, though their flames have faded in the morning light. She crosses through an archway and steps into Old Town Square. It takes her breath away. The square is enormous and nearly empty. The cobblestones are slick with dew. In the center stands the Jan Hus monument, quiet and proud. Behind it, the twin spires of the Church of Our Lady before Tin rise like needles into the pale sky. The astronomical clock on the Old Town Hall ticks softly. She watches its golden face glint in the rising sun. At 9 a.m., the clock begins its hourly show. Small figures of the apostles appear, rotating one by one. A skeleton rings a bell. The small crowd that has gathered applauds lightly. Ella smiles. She walks to the Charles Bridge. The bridge is old, built over 6 centuries ago, and lined with statues. The Vltava River flows beneath it, slow and silver. Swans glide in the water. Artists set up their easels. Musicians tune violins. She lingers on the bridge, watching the city wake. She walks to Malá Strana, crossing into the lesser town. She stops at a cafe with ivy-covered walls and orders a breakfast of eggs, toast and hot cocoa. She eats slowly, watching trams pass and leaves fall from chestnut trees. By mid-morning, she begins the long climb up the hill toward Prague Castle. The steps rise through quiet gardens and wooded paths. At the top she enters the castle complex, an entire world of palaces, cathedrals, courtyards, and towers. She walks through the gate and enters the courtyard of St. Vitus Cathedral. Its spires reach toward the clouds. The stained glass windows shimmer like precious gems. She enters the cathedral, her footsteps echoing. The air smells of stone and centuries. She stands in the light of a rose window, her breath still. She explores Golden Lane, tiny houses once used by alchemists and guards. Each is painted a different color. She buys a small notebook from a tiny bookstore. its shelves packed with old volumes and fairy tales. At noon, she watches the changing of the guard outside the palace. The soldiers march with crisp precision. Trumpets sound. The crowd claps. The sun warms the stone beneath her feet. She walks through the royal gardens, stopping to rest on a bench beneath a flowering linden tree. Birds chirp. A fountain trickles nearby. She takes out her notebook and sketches the skyline, spires and rooftops like a paper crown against the sky. In the early afternoon, she walks back down the hill and follows the river. She stops at a riverside cafe for lunch. Roast duck with red cabbage and dumplings, a Czech classic. She drinks cold apple cider and watches paddle boats drifting lazily. Next, she visits the Kafka Museum, tucked into a quiet corner by the river. Inside, shadows and mirrors reflect Franz Kafka's strange and poetic world. She reads excerpts from his journals and leaves with a postcard printed with one of his quotes. A book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. She continues her walk along the river to Kampa Island, where sculptures decorate quiet gardens and couples sit under trees. She takes off her shoes and walks barefoot on the soft grass, letting the earth cool her feet. By late afternoon, she crosses back into the old town. She visits a bookshop near the square, where towers of books reach the ceiling. She buys a poetry collection in English and Czech. The cashier wraps it in brown paper and ties it with string. She wanders into hidden courtyards and arcades, discovering a tiny art gallery where a local painter exhibits dreamlike watercolors. She buys a small print of Prague in moonlight. As the sun begins to set, she climbs the old town hall tower. The city glows gold. Red rooftops, green domes, church spires. It all feels like a living painting. The river reflects the sky like a second world. She descends and heads to dinner at a cozy cellar restaurant lit by candles. The stone walls are cool, and the ceiling arches above like a cave. She orders svikova, a beef dish with creamy sauce, cranberries, and dumplings. For dessert, she tries medovnik, a layered honey cake. After dinner, the streets are lit with warm lamps. Musicians play on the square. She buys a hot mulled wine from a wooden stall and sits on the steps of the old town hall, sipping slowly. Night deepens. She takes one final walk across the Charles Bridge, now glowing with lantern light. The city hums gently. Water laps at the stones. The stars appear. She returns to her hotel. From her window, she sees the spires of the city silhouetted against the sky. She lights a small candle and writes in her journal. Prague is not a place, it's a song, a dream, a story you enter and never leave. She closes her book, blows out the candle, and lets the silence carry her into sleep.